Hashtag young gig. I got her
No,
again.
you do. You always do.
I do. Hi, honey. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so today we're going to be continuing in our story of Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. Last time Jesus's bros taunted him and made fun of him. Well, taunted, made fun, same thing. They ended up throwing their shit in his direction though, like as they were taunting him. It's like, smacked him in the face with dung. And then they all went to a party, but Jesus decided to go in secret. But it wasn't secret for long because he did karaoke and then he saved a whore.
Okay.
So he definitely made himself known. Today, though, Jesus is going to convince a bunch of people to sing one of those classic inspirational songs, but it's about how he's the light and the only way you won't get tortured in a lake of fire is to believe in him and only him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so nice little inspirational piece there. It's like a flash mobby kind of thing. Well, the Pharisees, they interrupt the flash mob that Jesus puts on to say that Jesus and his newfangled music and flash mobbery is actually demonic and that Jesus is filled with all kinds of Satan.
Sounds like Jesus is like a progressive of the time.
I mean, yeah, at least compared to the Orthodox Jews. I mean, Jesus just didn't have a stick up his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jesus goes on to heal like a blind dude. And he's like, what demon could do that? Is what Jesus says to the Pharisees. And the Pharisees call bullshit. Jesus then goes, why you want to kill me? You can't. Not yet, at least. And the Pharisees look at each other all confused because they don't know what in the fuck he's talking about. Like, we're not trying to kill you. We're just calling bullshit on like everything that you're doing right now.
Sounds like backwoods country shit.
I know it does, doesn't it? And then Jesus starts talking a bunch of philosophical word salad, which just hurts the Pharisees' brains, so they kick him out of the pub.
Yeah, I don't.
Obviously, Jesus got drunk and he starts up there like, I am, you bitch. And, that's just not impressive to them. So, I hope y'all learned something about Jesus today.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to read this.
Jesus, what? No, Jesus gets drunk in a pub and he starts throwing some philosophy like he's Matt Damon in a bad movie.
Oh.
Good Will Hunting's a good movie. It's not a bad movie, but,
We're still going to read it.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
At the end, Jesus goes, how you like them apples?
Bitch.
What's up, heathens?
How y'all doing?
So obviously got a few things wrong, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, we're just going to tell the whole story. I mean, at least when I say whole story, I mean, what's in the Bible.
Okay, so we're just going to read verbatim what's in the Bible.
Yep, that's what we're going to do. It's so fun.
Today's podcast is brought to you by the Book of John, the most correct and accurate book of Jesus that was written 100 years after he supposedly bit the dust.
Definitely nothing magical about this, magical, but not untrue.
This is totally eyewitness account from the old man across the street, I guess.
I mean, we don't know from who, but
no, it's totally anonymous, but he would have been old as fuck at this point. It was written in the 2nd century.
Would have been a vampire.
Maybe. I mean, that could, sure. Vampire. Why not? Well, I mean, we've already got a magical wizard in this guy that speaks incantations and, tortures his son and kills him. So, why not throw in vampires there? That kind of sounds like a vampire thing to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you want me to go ahead and get going here?
Oh, yes. Let's do it.
All right. We're starting out in John chapter 8, not at the very beginning, but we're starting at verse 12. So we're going to talk about Jesus being the light of the world.
I'm the light of the world. I don't know. What's that song that they sing? It's like that. It's about children or something. You don't know which. It's like Michael Jackson sings it, maybe.
Oh,
we are the world. We are the world.
I think it's We Are the World.
Yeah, except it's I am the light of the world, and it's like Jesus just sort of co-opted that song. Actually, Michael Jackson probably stole it from him. I don't know. I think whoever wrote it.
I think this came first.
Anyways, I know we're not in my part anymore. We're in your part.
That's all right.
Okay.
You're the entertaining part of this. My part's boring.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. The Pharisees challenged him. Here you are appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. You remember the whole idea that testimony has to have witnesses? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus answered, because, fucking apologists have a response for everything. Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I am going, but you have no idea where I come from or where I am going. I find this part entertaining. But if I do judge, my decisions are true because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. In your own law, it is written that the testimony of two witnesses is true, which is terrible law. That's a terrible law to have.
It's a terrible methodology for determining what's true. I mean, all you got to do is get two motherfuckers to agree on something.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's hard, but I mean, other times I think that would not be that big of a deal.
But I mean, Bible, they're really not great at methodology.
Yeah, they're not.
I am one who testifies for myself,
mm-hmm.
and my other witness is the Father who sent me. And apparently if you go along with all this shit, he's actually got two witnesses plus himself because he's got the Holy Ghost too.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if God counts, the Holy Ghost counts. So it's three people, checkmate.
Yeah, you got to love that dissociative identity disorder. I mean, you've always got at least two witnesses wherever you go.
Yeah.
Also, I want to note here, because I pointed out at the beginning that John is written in the 2nd century. Well, also written in the 2nd century is Ignatius. Ignatius actually talks about this like other kind of gospel, where Jesus is not known while he's on earth at all whatsoever. He's only revealed to people as a star in the sky, as a bright light. And it's kind of interesting because a few friends have made this connection. That it's really interesting that Ignatius talks about that particular gospel. But then we've got the Gospel of John here, written right about the same time, who describes Jesus as the light of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And all this imagery towards him being like a light or a star or something like that. It's kind of interesting. I don't think that any conclusions can be made off of that. It's just kind of an interesting connection there.
Yeah. So the Pharisees, he was telling the Pharisees all of this, right?
Right.
Well, so the Pharisees asked him, "Where is your father?"
I'm not his keeper, motherfucker.
Well, he just said, "My witness is my dad," which is a terrible witness to begin with. But anyway. You do not know me or my Father, Jesus replied. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. This is fucking convenient. He spoke these words while teaching in the temple courts near the place where the offerings were put. Yet no one seized him because his hour had not yet come.
Yeah, so that reeks of like trying to say, oh, well, there's like prophecy that's going to be fulfilled.
Yes.
And so, on all that. But also he's talking figuratively about Father here. He's not being literal. He's the Father that he's talking about is, of course, God. And so he's accusing the Pharisees in this section of not following God.
And not knowing God.
And not knowing God.
Because they don't know him. But it's interesting because he has said before to his disciples that, you're not going to know him unless you have faith. Like, you're not going to be able to know things unless you have faith first.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know what he expects of these fucking people.
Yeah, I don't know.
Blind allegiance. Okay. Once more, Jesus said to them, I am going away and you will look for me and you will die in your sin. Where I go, you cannot come. Fucking rude. Can't sit with us. This made the Jews ask, will he kill himself? Is that why he says, where I go, you cannot come?
I mean, maybe he's just going into a fort that says no jackasses. I mean, it's like, I don't know why they got to go like, oh, is he going to kill himself? Like, no, I'm fucking going home. You can't come into my house. Get out.
But he continued, you are from below. I am from above. You are of this world. I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins. If you do not believe that I am he, you will indeed die in your sins.
Important note to point out here, since this is coming from John and they're trying to mesh all the gospels together, John doesn't have a birth narrative for Jesus at all. So in John's eyes, it's just Jesus's ministry, like here on earth. And I think that we'll get to this later in this chapter, but basically Jesus in John's gospel is pre-existent to all of creation. And so that's kind of what he's alluding to here, is that, him not being of this world, being that he's, an angel of God or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? They asked. Just what I have been telling you from the beginning, Jesus replied. I have much to say in judgment of you, but he who sent me is trustworthy, and what I have heard from him I tell the world. They did not understand that he was telling them about his Father, so Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. Even as he spoke, many believed him.
Yeah, so in this section right here, I'm sorry, I know I keep interrupting you, but there's a little note here, like a footnote, that talks about how in the Greek, lifted up also means exalted. And just so you know what Jesus is alluding to here, he's alluding to his ascension into heaven. So basically, you won't, like, none of these other Jews, none of the people, like, nobody outside of the discipleship, right, will know that Jesus is the Son of Man or the Son of God.
I mean, he's telling them.
The Messiah. I mean, he's telling them, but what he's saying right here is that, you will only know that what I have done and who I am after I've been ascended back up into heaven. And so
which is kind of how Paul wrote, right?
Yeah.
Nobody knew about Jesus until after, well, not after his ascension, but after he resurrected.
Right. After he was revealed, after he started revealing himself to people, like it said that nobody knew him. Also noteworthy is in that Ignatius, that star gospel that Ignatius talks about. It also says this very same thing, that nobody knows about Jesus until he revealed himself in the sky. So it's interesting what he's saying here. And he's again speaking in parables, speaking in word salad, basically, that only people that already know what he's talking about can understand.
Which is a common form for the Gospels,
right?
In general.
And typically mystery cults, by the way.
To the Jews who had believed in him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? Jesus replied, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are Abraham's descendants, yet you are looking for a way to kill me, because you have no room for my word. I am telling you that I have seen the Father's presence, and you are doing what you have heard from your father.
So we know that, because we know the story, we know that Jesus is eventually going to get killed, or the Pharisees are going to arrest him and eventually put him in a position to be killed. But up until this point, like, nobody's like, how can we kill this motherfucker? Like, I don't recall any verses where the Pharisees are like, how can we kill him? We need to kill him.
I think there have been discussions about him, like, being arrested and things like that. Like, there have been discussions about.
Oh, I thought the discussions were coming from Jesus himself, not Pharisees. Or have the Pharisees been talking about arresting?
I just know that it's been mentioned. It's been talked about when he goes to the temple and things like that, that I don't know who exactly is doing the discussing, or if people, I mean, if in this story, the Jesus character says, I know you've been talking about this, then, probably people have been talking about it. I mean, none of this is historical anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I mean, the idea of Jesus being arrested or killed is not new here, right now.
Well, yeah, I know, like, as far as us, the reader, it's not new to us, but I guess I didn't recall the Pharisees specifically talking about it. But
I don't recall specifically who, a lot of this isn't super clear, but I mean, I'd have to go back and reference, because I don't have all of this memorized. This is not like, I do this and then it's like not gone, but I don't remember details. I have to look them up for the most part. Abraham is our father, they answered. If you were Abraham's children, said Jesus, then you would do as Abraham did. As it is, you are looking for a way to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. Abraham did not do such things. You are doing the works of your own father. We are not illegitimate children, they protested. The only father we have is God himself. This whole section to me is super confusing. Because the Pharisees are saying they're Abraham's children, right? But they're like, when they say we're Abraham's children, this is like Abraham from way back in the beginning, like way, way back.
Yeah.
So they're not Abraham's children. Like, all of this, the way that they're talking about things, and then to say we're not illegitimate children, they're not talking about being children to like bastard kids. Right? They're talking about belonging to something bigger, right? I mean, they're not talking about their father, and they're not even necessarily talking about their bloodline.
Well, no. So basically, they're trying to say that they all descend from Abraham in one way or another. So they're not being literal about the father; they're being figurative, and this is all figurative speech.
So they're all cousin fucking is what I'm hearing, that they all everybody's great granddaddy is Abraham.
Well, I mean, like everybody in the tribe can trace their lineage back one way or another to Abraham.
So yeah, cousin fucking.
Maybe cousin fucking, but also, they took a bunch of sexual slaves from the areas around them and worked them in. So not necessarily like all that bottlenecked of a gene pool, but
well, no, I mean, plus it was so long ago,
right? I think it's just like, oh, we can trace the lineage. Like if you trace your lineage,
I think they're just talking about the lineage of the Jewish people.
They are, and so the one father is, of course, God. And can you guess who the other father is that they're talking about?
I mean, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, we are. But the illegitimate children is like you were saying, they're just saying that they're not bastard children, or they're not.
I mean, I don't think that's what they're saying. I don't think they're saying they're not bastard children. Bastard children are, I guess, children without fathers.
Or have been abandoned by their father, I guess, or,
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously everybody has a father, but children that don't have dads.
Right.
So, or they weren't married. Their parents weren't married when they were conceived or born or whatever. That would be a bastard kid.
Right. I think that what it's trying to communicate here is that they don't think that God has rejected them.
But it's interesting. And it says the only father we have is God himself, but they were talking about Abraham being their dad.
That is a bit confusing right there. So I don't know exactly, I guess maybe what's going on or what's being trying to be communicated here, but maybe Jesus will clarify here soon.
Speaking of being bastard children, can I tell you a personal story?
Sure. Are you a bastard?
I mean, it depends on who you ask. So, when my parents got divorced when I was a kid, and when my dad was going to marry my now stepmother, she is like super Catholic, right? And so he was converting to Catholicism, and they were going through all of those, like all the process that Catholics have to go through before they get married. Which, if any of you don't know about that, look it up. That shit is ridiculous. All the things you have to go through. The months of therapy with a priest who has never been married, doesn't have kids or family, doesn't have sex. We hope. Right? We hope, at least not with somebody he shouldn't be. So it's weird. I don't know. I've always thought the whole process for Catholics getting married is odd. But anyway, they were going through that process. Well, divorce in the Catholic Church is no bueno, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So in order to get married in the Catholic Church, my dad, he was divorced, and that was a prop. So what they had to do, my dad and my mom, after being divorced, was get an annulment. The priest called my mother. And who my mom's not Catholic. She was never part of that church, calls my mother and talks to her about getting their marriage annulled because that would make it better. Like, I guess having it be a different word makes it different enough for the church that it's okay, which is fucking weird in of itself, right?
I thought that you could only get an annulment in certain situations. I don't
know what all the rules are. I believe that's true. An annulment and a divorce are different. And yes, that is true. But I don't know. I don't know all the details of this story and how the process all worked, but we're getting to the illegitimate children part.
Right. Sorry, real quick. Right in my head, whenever I think of annulment, I think of somebody being like, so y'all ain't fucked yet? Like in my head, that's kind of like the questionnaire for divorce or annulment. Have you fucked? Haven't you fucked?
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I'm probably wrong about what, the requirements for annulment. Anyway,
I mean, I don't think that's the only thing. But in any case, so my mom was trying to understand why this fucking mattered, right? She's not Catholic. So this priest calling her being like, you need to get an annulment. She's like, the fuck? Like, her and my dad had been divorced for a few years at this point, and it's just like, what are you talking? So she's asking the priest questions. So she's like, why does this even matter? Mm-hmm. And so the priest is trying to explain it to her, and he's like, basically, if you get an annulment, that essentially means your marriage never happened. Okay, so in the eyes of the Catholic Church, if you have an annulment, a marriage that was 8 years long and produced a child, in the eyes of the church, fucking hear no evil, see no evil. If you've got the annulment paperwork is like the blindfolds for that, right? And so my mom is like, so if my marriage never happened, then are you trying to say my daughter is a bastard? And the priest was like, oh, no, this doesn't have any effect on the children. It's just like, it's super weird. The shit that some religions, Catholicism specifically in this case, will jump through, like these little holes in the mental gymnastics that they have to do to tell themselves that the wrong thing that they're doing is okay because they changed the fucking word for it. Mm-hmm. But it only applies to this part, not the kids. The kids' parents were definitely married for the kids' part, but we have to marry this other person to this other person, and we can't do that if there's a divorce. So it has to be an annulment, saying it never existed. It's just so bizarre.
I kind of feel like the priest was like, well, because in Catholicism you can't get divorced. Technically, you can't get remarried.
Not in the Catholic Church. Right. So like being married by a priest in the Catholic Church, they won't marry you in the church. And
right.
And priests can marry who they want to marry. If priests want to marry people and they'll marry them outside, that's their own personal decision. They are allowed to do that. But as far as being married inside a Catholic church, and some priests won't do it. Mm-hmm. Some priests will and some priests won't. But if you're getting married in the Catholic Church, you can't have been divorced.
Right.
You have to have been annulled, which is vastly different it disappeared. The marriage before disappears from history.
It just sounds like they're like we're gonna just prefer not to acknowledge that he was ever married in the first place. So it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure you're on the level with us about this.
You know what's funny to me is I wonder if they contacted my dad's first wife, because that wasn't my mom.
No, probably not.
So, I mean, I don't know how all that worked out and how they justified it, but they managed to do it. So whatever, whatever magic paperwork they had to do to fix it, to make it look like everything was okay and kosher for the church, they did that. So anyway, long sidebar. Sorry about that. According to the Catholic Church, I am and also am not a bastard child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I love you, bastard child. Bastard or not, I love you.
I love you too. That's really weird though, right?
Yeah, it is.
Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I have come here from God. I have not come on my own. God sent me. Why is my language not clear to you? Because you are unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. There it is. Mm-hmm. Their father's not Abraham or God. It's the devil.
It's the devil. Yep, that's the... I've heard this exact same line come from evangelicals now. Mm-hmm. Your father's the devil. How did you know?
You've met my dad? He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Yet because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. Can any of you prove me guilty of sin? If I am telling the truth, why don't you believe me? Whoever belongs to God hears what God says. The reason you do not hear is that you do not belong to God.
Yeah, so I find this interesting because this whole he's a liar and the father of lies thing is like the first time that I can really recall like this being extensively discussed like in the Bible at all. Mm-hmm. And I this is one of the very Christian things about Christianity that's apart from Judaism, right? And it was syncretized in from Zoroastrianism, this supernatural antithesis to Jesus, the Savior. Mm-hmm. And since Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, right? Then that means that his antithesis is the darkness, the liar, father of lies.
The wrong way.
Yeah, the wrong. It sounds like a bad horror movie. Do not
enter.
Sounds like a bad horror movie about hillbillies that'll eat you, right? But this is the first time you hear about the Satan being the liar and the father of lies. But if you think about it, about the story of the Bible in general, like the long story, I don't ever see like what Christians have post hoc rationalized as Satan in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen anything that's been a lie come from Satan. I've also never seen Satan be a murderer because Satan has just done God's bidding, right? Like you've got Job.
Yeah, I mean, that was the example I was thinking of with Job. Satan did do these things to Job and to his family, but it was a deal with God. It was a test to test someone's faith in God, and
Right.
it was like a game between
Right.
God and Satan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like him being like Satan being a murderer or being a liar or anything like that, like even in the Garden of Eden, the serpent, who's not Satan, but is this evil force, but Christians identify the snake
They
with Satan. And they say that, well, he lied to Eve. And it's like, well, technically he didn't lie to Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, he convinced Eve to eat the fruit because God said you will surely die if you eat it, but she ate it and she didn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And the snake was just like, you're not going to die. Like, I mean, maybe the snake, didn't give her all the information, but who's to say the snake knew all the information?
Well, so it's a little more complicated than that, because some would say that it did cause Eve to die. She didn't die right away, but prior to eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge, they were eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And once they ate the fruit, they were no longer eternal and they would die.
Aha, the good astute observation, but that I feel like that only reveals the necessity for Eve to eat the fruit, because Eve had to eat the fruit. And I mean, I feel like the snake or evil, the Satan in the Garden of Eden was just sort of like a scapegoat for it, because like God requires Eve to eat from the fruit and for Eve to convince Adam.
Well, in order for all this to play out, absolutely.
Right.
None of this would have been able to play out if not. They would have all just remained 100% pure and holy and unknowing,
Right.
They're in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
Eternal forever.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that wouldn't explain like fucking shit now, right? Like that wouldn't provide any, no, I mean, everybody would just take that as like a fantasy story. But, I feel like, you need for that stuff to work out the way that it does. So, I mean, all of this is just not me defending Satan, but just pointing out some errors in logic within the story.
Well, and pointing out the indications of a narrative, not a history.
Right. Exactly.
Those are very different things.
Because this is like Satan is really only prominent in the New Testament. He's kind of a character that just sort of appears with no explanation in the previous sections about him.
I mean, we do have a little bit in the Old Testament.
Well, that we now recognize as Satan, but I feel like that's just because of the post hoc rationalization that
even
Christians
Job
have done. Even in Job, because they didn't consider, like, the Jews don't have this idea of the devil, or at least the Jews of the first century and prior to that point, like they didn't have like this cosmic
well, he was
evil.
he wasn't, to them, he wasn't the devil that we think about today because of, Christian imagery now. But he was, Satan was just an angel.
Well, he was just another angel. And, but I mean, even in Job, like Job has, he's still in heaven. Like he hasn't been thrown out of heaven or anything like that. I mean, he's just another angel in God's harem of angels, you know? So, I mean, but the Christians, they took that one angel, reworked him into this antithesis of Jesus.
Because of all the bad things that he did to Job and tempting him and doing all that, he fit.
Right.
Yeah, he fit what Satan and the devil was to become.
Right. And so my entire point is just that this is kind of like, for me, at least, it's kind of out of the blue. He is a liar and a father of lies. It's like, wait, what? Like, sure, you had a bad experience in the desert, Jesus, but you were probably just hungry. Like, you were hangry.
Have a Snickers.
Have a Snickers.
Unless you're allergic to peanuts, then like, I don't know, maybe a Milky Way.
Yeah, maybe you just needed a protein shake.
What? The Jews answered him, "Aren't we right in saying that you are a Samaritan and demon possessed?"
No, what? Demon possessed? Like, where are you getting this at?
"I am not possessed by a demon," said Jesus. That's what somebody who is possessed by a demon would say.
Exactly what somebody possessed by a demon would say. That's right, honey.
"But I honor my Father and you dishonor me. I am not seeking glory for myself, but there is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. Very truly I tell you, whoever obeys my word will never see death." At this they exclaimed, "Now we know you are demon possessed. Abraham died and so did the prophets, yet you say that whoever obeys your word will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died and so did the prophets. Who do you think you are?" They're getting kind of sassy.
Yeah, they are.
But they don't understand that at this point he's talking figuratively about death.
Yeah.
He's not saying they'll be on earth forever, alive forever, like fucking vampires.
Well, yeah. So I guess maybe because we've been watching True Blood a lot, what Jesus is talking about is the true death, like non-existence.
Oh, I know he's talking about, but he's not saying that they'll live forever on earth, like they'll be alive forever. Right. They just, when they die, they will have an afterlife, and they don't understand that at this point.
Right.
So they think he's fucking crazy, which is makes perfect sense. Jesus replied, "If I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Though you do not know him, I know him. If I said I did not, I would be a liar like you, but I do know him and obey his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. You are not yet 50 years old, they said to him, and you have seen Abraham? Very truly, I tell you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am." At this, they picked up stones to stone him, but Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds.
I just imagine that scene, like, this motherfucker, and they bend down to pick up stones, and then Jesus is like, woo! Go on. Howdy 5,000, yo.
Went just a little too far with the whole I am bit.
Yeah. So, so yeah, obviously, Jesus is implying that Abraham, like when, either when he died here on earth or just before his death, saw Jesus, because Jesus is pre-existent to everything. And so like Jesus has been there with them since Abraham. Right. And so that's what he's just implying.
Okay. So now Jesus has left. He's run away. He's scampered away. So he doesn't get stoned to death.
He listed lazily to the left and they lost him.
But as he went along, he saw a blind man from, he saw a man blind from birth, right? His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Weird reason to think a motherfucker is blind. Either his parents had to sin or he did.
Well, yeah, I mean, even Jesus has said that, you know, that common ailments like this are due to, well, he said demon possession in the past, but I guess maybe also sins could cause it.
Well, yeah, but I do think it's interesting because it said he's been blind since birth, and they're asking if he was the one that sinned. What, before he was born? Yeah, sure, it was the kid.
Well, I mean, if you think about it in Catholicism, you know, you're born with sin, right?
I mean, you're born with sin in all of it.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there are some denominations of Protestant Christianity that don't think that you're born with original sin, that eventually, you know, you come to sin.
Which ones?
Well, like I know definitely a bunch of evangelicals do. Like William Lane Craig, that's why he thinks that it's okay for children to die young, because they automatically go to heaven. They haven't been able, like they haven't reached, I guess, maybe the age of reason or something like that, to where they can sin.
Why did they get baptized? Or do they not? Do they get saved later? Like
they get in Protestant Christianity, they don't get baptized when they're born necessarily. Like you can.
Well, I mean, I guess that can be true. Well, they don't have christenings for.
No, they do. You can get your child baptized when they're born, but it's not necessary, I don't think, or something.
Okay. Like in Catholicism, you're supposed to get baptized as soon after you're born as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, they usually get baptized really quickly.
Right. But I mean, like I said, you know, William Lane Craig thinks that it's perfectly okay for the Israelites to have killed children of pagan cultures, because it would be better for them to die now than grow up in the pagan culture, so that they will eventually go to hell. But if you kill them young enough, they will go to heaven automatically.
That's gross. I don't know if he's met kids, but some of those motherfuckers are straight up out of hell.
they can be little hellions. But yeah, so it's very specific to a denomination, obviously. And so, you know, it just really depends on what they teach and everything like that.
Yeah. I wonder what some Protestant religions think the age of reason is. You know, in the Catholic Church, the age of reason is what, 7?
Yeah.
Which is dumb as hell. Have you ever met a fucking reasonable 7-year-old ever? No, I've never met a reasonable 7-year-old. They're usually ridiculous. I mean, they certainly are not capable of reasoning, like in a normal adult kind of way. Right. Like the idea that you would make a lifelong commitment, which is what, like in Catholicism, that's what, help me, confirmation. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That's what confirmation is, right? You get that you're baptized when you're a baby. And then when you reach the age of reason, you're confirmed.
Right.
And so used to confirmations, at least when I was younger, I recall confirmations being a little bit older, but they're younger now. Like friends that I knew in friends that I knew when I was in school were getting confirmed, like, I don't know, later on in middle school.
Yeah.
But now they get confirmed earlier. And the idea of a confirmation is that you are choosing and committing yourself, because your parents chose for you when you were baptized. But when you get confirmed, you're committing yourself.
Oh, you see, like that was, well, speaking in context for when I got confirmed in Catholicism, I was just doing what I was told. Like I had no informed consent about any of this shit.
Sure, because you're not old enough, but that's what it's supposed to be. You're confirming on your own, of your own volition. It is you as your own person, supposedly, this is how it's supposed to work, confirming that you are Catholic, you believe in the Catholic dogma and doctrine, and that you will follow Catholicism. And that's your commitment to Catholicism, and you're saying, this is what I believe, me as my own person, not as my parents deciding for me. But they have you do it so young that there's usually not any choice in it at all. Confirmation, frankly, in my personal opinion, should happen when you're an adult, maybe somewhere between 21 and 25 years old, when you are no longer dependent on your well, I don't know. I know a lot of 21 and to 25-year-olds that are still dependent on their parents. I wasn't. I was out of the house at like 19 and I was done. But like, when you're not dependent on your parents, so that your parents can't force you to do it because you depend on them for like a place to live. You know what I mean? Like, it should happen at a time where you are truly independently saying, and not only truly independently saying, but able to understand what you're saying,
right?
And able to understand what you believe. Because as a child, even a little bit older of a child, you're not understanding.
Yeah. I really don't remember much from my confirmation. What I do remember is I remember my mom standing up with me sitting on the couch. She's reading the recipe, and for like what she's like the recipe for what she's supposed to do at home. And it's like, she takes something and she draws a cross on my head, and like that's all that I remember. She did
something at home?
Yeah.
Oh, see, confirmation was in church for me. Of course.
Well, the official the official thing what happened in the church. But
like it was before.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was just like practice or something, but I just remember it's like I'm just supposed to sit here. She's supposed to draw a cross on my head, and she says magic words. Like that was pretty much it. And like all I remember from the actual thing at the church, I was just running around playing with other kids. Like I didn't give a fuck. Like I didn't know what we were doing, what was going on.
Exactly, and that's my point. Like the idea that age is the age of reason is so ridiculous. Because I mean, for me, I got, because I wasn't Catholic when I was born. I didn't become Catholic until later. My baptism and confirmation actually happened on the same day, which is very unusual.
Weird.
Yeah. Anyway, are you ready to continue?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we're at the point where the disciples are asking who sinned, the blind man or his parents, right? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. I am in the world. I am the light of the world. And you should be able to light up the night, motherfucker.
Kind of a dick thing to do, to give someone blindness just so that you can perform a miracle on them. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot like a doctor shooting a patient in the leg just so that he could bandage it up later.
Yeah. But worse, because this guy had to live blind for his entire life up until this point.
Right.
After saying this, he, Jesus, spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. Go, he told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. Siloam. How do you say this word? Oh, look, I have a thing that I learned about today. Siloam. Yeah.
This
word means sent. Siloam.
Yeah. Does this not sound familiar to something we've already heard in the Bible?
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, don't you remember Jesus, he spit in a dude's eye and he was like, can you see? And the dude's like, no, they're just shapes of trees. And he's like, well, fuck, I forgot. Let me rub some dirt in it, and then he rubbed dirt in his eyes, and, then he could see. I mean,
yeah, that happens more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
this is the way you cure blind people, John, of course.
It's magical saliva dirt. Yep.
Yeah. Maybe we should try this on my mom. I mean, she's not blind technically, but her vision is really fucking bad. She don't have her glasses. She can't see shit. Think we should do this? You think Alabama dirt would work?
I don't know. I don't know if we need just somebody named Jesus to spit in the dirt, or if like we can consecrate it with like holy Pope tears.
I mean, we should be able to do it. You are ordained.
I'm ordained, and
your name's John.
My name's John.
Close enough.
Yeah, it might work. I don't know. I'll go out and spit on some dirt. Huh?
Probably just give her an eye infection.
I mean, probably that's how reality works.
She wouldn't let us try.
Hey, Mama, can I rub dirt in your eyes, see if it'll make you see better?
She was looking at us like we're crazy.
The fuck you doing? Get away from me with that dirt.
Okay, so that, one of the other things I find interesting as we're reading through the New Testament, and we just had it happen again today, wash in the pool of, what did I say?
Siloam.
Okay, so Siloam means sent. This pool, it's very convenient that this pool he's supposed to go and wash in is named in a meaningful way to this particular story. And that happens a lot here in the Gospels where stuff, and I mean, not just in the Gospels, but it also happens in the Old Testament where it's really convenient that a place is specifically named for whatever story that they're telling right now. And it was named that before.
Yeah.
Or that someone's name means a thing that coordinates with something they did.
Yeah.
And that is very common in all of these stories. And that's an indication that it's not historical. That's an indication that it is a narrative. It is a fictional narrative.
Right.
Okay. So the man went and he washed and he came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man. I'm the man." That's what he said. "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. He replied, "The man they call Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam."
Siloam.
"And wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now, on the day which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was the Sabbath. Uh-oh, he's in trouble. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man said, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He is a prophet." They still did not believe he had been blind and he had received sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is he the one you say was born blind? How is it now that he can see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age, he will speak for himself." Curious, eh? His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders, who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That is why his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." I love how they just throw their kid under the bus.
Yeah, no.
Fucking ask that guy. We're not going anywhere.
I don't fucking know. Ask him. I mean, I'm just going to go take a shit is what I was going to do.
A second time they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." Then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I have told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And then they threw him out.
How could he be steeped in sin at birth?
I don't know. Maybe his mom was a whore.
Well, I'm guessing the only thing that I can think of is just being born with original sin. And just the fact that you were born at all is a sin.
Which, to be fair, so would all of them be.
Well, yeah, but I guess they're trying to make the distinction that, well, we're saved by the God of Moses or, our God. You do not follow this God, so you're not saved.
But he's saying that he does.
Oh, yeah, I know. I feel like all of this is piling on to to the whole narrative of the Pharisees are dipshits and they're trying to retain power for themselves because they have a lot of power over the Jewish people at this point. And so I think they're just trying to retain that power, being like, well, we represent God, not this guy.
Oh yeah. They still do that. They're not a real Christian.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when they found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you."
I am the great I am. Dumb bitch.
The man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. That is a really small amount of shit to go off of to like all of a sudden worship another person.
Yeah. But, you know, this is actually pretty reflective of how the early church fathers actually were like convinced of Christianity. Because like if you go to Justin Martyr, he just simply heard the stories of the Bible, liked them. And so he believed. And so it really was like, this seems like a really radical thing, but it really was this simple for people to just up and believe in something.
No, I mean, I do believe it. I feel like people who are, I want to say predisposed to Christianity. And the reason I'm saying it that way is people who are born into Christian families and go to Christian churches and things like that growing up. They're indoctrinated and in it from the very beginning and taught this stuff from the very beginning. A lot of people like that tend to go through multiple denominations to try to figure out where they fit. And that's the kind of thing they do too. They see something, they look at like at this denomination or that, and they're like, "Oh, I like this. I like the things that they say, so I'm going to go with this one." And so, I mean, I guess it's kind of like that. This guy does him a favor. I guess if you could call a favor making you not blind anymore, right? And then is like, which, I mean, obviously he's going to be like, "Wow, that's amazing. You must be somebody powerful." And then the guy says, "I'm the Son of God." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then, you know, proceeds to do the Jesus dick sucking thing.
Yeah. Is that what he does?
I mean, yeah, the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. That's what that means. Jesus said, you know, after they were done and whatever, "For judgment I have come into this world so that the blind will see and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What? Are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." It's fucking rude. I feel like he set them up for that.
Yeah, he did.
"Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by gate." Now we're talking about sheep. You ready? There's a lot of sheep shit about to happen, so strap in.
It could mean a multitude of things.
It could.
But it's not going to be, you know, ad like limited to no ads type stuff.
No, we might already be there. I did talk about that though.
Yeah. Y'all didn't see the move she made. She visualized it.
Okay. "Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way is a thief and a robber." This reminds me of like, you know, Aaron's sons when they were worshiping God, but they lit the incense with the wrong fire. It's like, you got there, but you got there the wrong fucking way.
Yeah.
This reeks of that to me.
It does.
Okay. "The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listens to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them, which makes all the fucking sense in the world because this makes no fucking sense and it doesn't get any clearer.
No, but he does try to clarify it. And of course, you know, this is all about how Jesus would speak in parables and stuff.
He does, but keep in mind now, he's given us a couple of people, right? We've got the gate, we've got the gatekeeper, right? And we've got the shepherd. Okay, so these are the characters that we have, these three different characters.
Yeah, it reminds me of Ghostbusters.
All right. So therefore, Jesus said again, "Very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep." Okay. So Jesus is the gate. "All who have come before me are the thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full."
So is it that the shepherd has to fuck the gate?
I mean, maybe the shepherd's dick is the key and the gatekeeper has to watch.
"I am the gatekeeper. Are you the key master?"
I don't know. Let's see if the dick fits. Okay, so now we know Jesus is the gate, right?
Yep.
he continues. Jesus keeps talking because that's what he does, right? I am the good shepherd. So Jesus is the gate and the shepherd.
He fucks himself. Good to know.
The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I have other people? I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. Resurrection. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. So we have no idea who the gatekeeper is, but we know Jesus is the gate and the shepherd. Right? So you have to go through him, in and out of him, but also follow him wherever he goes.
Yeah. And then obviously with the two flocks merging into one, you've got the Israelites and the Jews, and then you got the Gentiles. And since this is John being written in the 2nd century, it's talking about merging those two groups. Like you're all part of one group, being the children of God.
Christians would disagree with you now. Say all their denominations.
Yeah.
The Jews who heard these words were again divided. Many of them said, he is demon possessed and raving mad. Why listen to him? But the others said, these are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind?
I mean, if he's looking to deceive you, yeah. I mean, why not? Right.
So that's our story for today. Next time, that's today. You got anything else about today?
No. I mean, is pretty cut and dry.
Next time we're going to go back to, this was all in John, right? Obviously. Next time, we're going to go back into Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Okay. And we're going to talk about Jesus's ministry from Galilee to Judea.
All right.
Okay. His Galilean ministry ends.
Okay.
Okay. And we're going to meet a group of lepers, and we're going to have some leprosy healing. I think before we read this, we need to go, I need to pull up your Bible. You remember your old Bible videos that you used to do that were really short? And you had the one on curing leprosy. Before we do this, we need to pull that up so that I think you should do it. I think you should read through how to cure leprosy. So as we need to do this. Okay. During this section. And this is in Luke. The lepers being healed is in Luke. Yeah. Okay. And then God is going to send out 72 people. We're going to find out why next week. And thankfully all of them come back, right? Yeah. And there's a revelation that we're going to have like some sort of Thanksgiving supper for. And despite one of my favorite songs, apparently there is rest for the weary, though there is no rest for the wicked. And money don't grow on trees.
Money don't grow on trees.
Love that song.
I got bills to pay and mouths to feed.
Yep. Ain't nothing in this world is free.
Ain't nothing in this world is free.
Yep. Okay, we're going to have the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to talk with Martha and Mary, right? We're going to have another parable of persistence, and there's going to be some praying. And then we're going to be in Jerusalem for the festival of dedication. And Jesus is going to affirm he's going to affirm his own deity, right? So that's going to happen. What else we got? Oh, there's going to be an attempt to stone Jesus.
Wait, attempt to get stoned with Jesus, or like,
I don't know. We'll find out next week. Okay. Yeah, we'll find out next week if we're getting stoned with Jesus or stoning Jesus. So we'll find that out. And then we go to a place called Perea. I don't know. Let's see what this says it is, because I love my new tool here. Perea. That's what we're doing. And then the week after that, because at the end of this, he goes to Perea. The week after that, we're going to do his Perean ministry. Okay. All right. So that's what's coming up on the Bible.
Okay. Awesome. Can't wait for that. So if you guys want to tune in next week to learn all those juicy tidbits about Jesus, then please do. Before you leave out though, why don't you go down below and let us know what you think about today's episode. Do you think that Jesus had something going on with the gate? Who knows? We don't know. But anyways, while you're down there, can you please go back up just a little bit farther and smash that like button, and then hit that subscribe. I think I fucked that up.
It's okay. You know what I just thought of?
What?
If Jesus is the gate and the shepherd, and the shepherd has to put the key in the gate, is Jesus fucking himself?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Jesus fucked himself.
Oh, I guess it just didn't click in the same way. Sorry. I might have been looking ahead. I don't know.
Casey's just catching up with me.
Sorry, I feel like that person in the meetings that is like, can we go back to slide 3? And you're on like slide 12. Anyway, don't forget to stand up and use your voice.
Bye, heathens.
Bye, y'all.